Okay, let's unpack this. We're doing a deep dive into a really significant legal decision that just hit Google.
Yeah, big money involved.
Big money, and maybe more importantly, your personal data.
Right. This really shines a light on, the whole tangle of digital privacy, what consent actually means, and these devices we carry around constantly.
So today, we're zeroing in on that California jury decision.
Hmm.
Google ordered to pay, what was it, $314 million.
That's the number. All over data transfers from Android phones.
Our mission here is to kind of break down what happened, what Google's saying about it, and what it really means for you, the user.
Especially now when everything's so connected.
Okay, so July 2nd, 2025, California jury drops this huge $314 million order on Google.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just general data collection, right? It was specific.
Very specific. Data sent from Android phones when they were connected to cellular networks, not Wi-Fi.
And this whole thing, it wasn't sudden. It came out of a class action lawsuit, started back in 2019.
Yeah, it's been brewing for a while. The core argument from the plaintiffs was, look, Google should just waited.
Waited for Wi-Fi.
Exactly. Waited until the phone was on Wi-Fi to send this data so users wouldn't rack up cellular data charges. That was the crux of it. Unnecessary costs.
And the way they described it happening is pretty striking. They said it was silent.
Yeah, silent and without users' consent. That's the phrase they used.
So your phone potentially sending data while it's just, sitting in your pocket.
Or even on your nightstand while you're asleep, apparently. That's what the plaintiffs claimed.
Wow. And what data are we talking about here? What was Google allegedly using it for?
Well, the lawsuit claimed the info was used to, quote, further its own corporate interests.
Which usually means.
Targeted advertising, mainly. That was the allegation.
And it wasn't just passive background stuff all the time.
No, they also claim that sometimes these data transfers were actually delayed until the phone got a cellular signal. And, maybe more surprisingly, that it happened even after users had closed the Google apps involved.
So it really brings up questions about, how much control do we actually have?
Exactly. But Google, naturally, has a very different take on this.
Right. Their spokesperson, Jose Castañeda, came out pretty quickly, said they will appeal.
Yep. Strong disagreement.
So what's their main defense? Why do they say these transfers are necessary?
They argue the ruling fundamentally misunderstands what these services do. They say they're critical.
Critical for
Security, performance, reliability, basically making sure the billions of Android devices out there actually work like they're supposed to.
Okay, so it's an essential function argument.
That's their position. And they also push back on the amount of data.
Oh, yeah. What do they say about that?
They claim it uses little cellular data. Less, they say, than sending a single photo.
Less than a photo.
Okay.
And the big one, consent. They say users did consent.
Mm-hmm. They point to the terms of use agreements, the stuff nobody reads.
Huh.
And various settings, options on the devices themselves. They say consent is given through those.
But that's where the fight really is, isn't it? What consent actually means here.
Absolutely. The plaintiffs completely disputed that. They alleged Google actually, quote, intentionally made it impossible for users to disable the transfers completely.
Impossible. So no real opt-out.
That's the claim, that these transfers were, in their words, mandatory and unavoidable burdens that users just had to bear for Google's benefit.
And they brought Apple into it too, right? Comparing Android to iOS.
They did. They noted that, according to them, much less data gets sent passively on iPhones.
Why?
Because, the complaint argued, iOS gives users more granular control over that kind of background activity, implying, if Apple can do it.
Now, why can't Google? Yeah, that's a potent comparison.
And it's important to see this isn't like a one-off issue for Google and data.
Right. There was that other big settlement recently in Texas.
Exactly. Just back in May, Google agreed to pay Texas over $1.37 billion.
Billion with a B.
Yeah. To end 2 lawsuits there, that case started in 2022.
And what was that one about? Similar stuff.
Related, yeah. Allegations of illegally tracking location data, collecting biometrics like face scans, voice prints,
Right.
and even tracking searches done in incognito mode, which is supposed to be private.
So taking all this together, it paints a picture of ongoing, let's say, friction between Google's practices and user privacy expectations.
Definitely. There's a pattern of legal challenges.
So wrapping this deep dive up, what's the big takeaway for you listening? It seems to boil down to this constant tension, right?
Mm-hmm.
Between needing our phones to just work, which apparently involves some background data, and our right to understand and control our own information.